Welcome back to Views with Hughes, your agenda-free news. I'm Jerome Hughes, and today we're going to be talking more about Rings of Power. This time I'm going to share an article from Bounding Into Comics about the fact that the showrunners are continuing to defend the fact that, well, what they think is that the Hobbits were existing in the Second Age, as well as who they claim weren't, who they claim the Hobbits weren't. All right, so I was going to give a little details about the truth about the Hobbits being in the existence of Middle Earth, as well as the Hobbits. But before we begin, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet, and also click the bell notification so that way you'll be alerted of new uploads. All right, so let's go ahead and get right into it. So, Bounding Into Comics reported again that despite the Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, including Hobbits, J.R.R. Tolkien made it clear they were not in the Second Age. Now, I said that they're reporting it again. What I mean by that is that they're reporting more about, what was being said at Comic-Con of this year. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right into it. So it says here, the Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power will be including Hobbits, despite J.R.R. Tolkien making it very clear that they did not appear until the Third Age following the events that the Rings of Power is expected to cover. So, like I said, and I told you all this before, that Rings of Power that takes place during Second Age, okay, and it's based on the appendices from the Lord of the Rings novel, okay. It's not Third Age itself, so that's why they also brought in different characters that Tolkien didn't even create either. All right. So the showrunners J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay, they tried to explain that why when it was asked about why is there a Hobbit story in the Second Age, well, Payne replied that it says here was actually technically not a Hobbit story, it's a Harfoot story. And so Tolkien doesn't say anything about Harfoots not having done anything amazing in the Second Age. Here's the thing though, all Harfoots are Hobbits, but not all Hobbits are Harfoots. And also, there weren't any Hobbits in the Second Age. So in order for them to have done anything major or have a major part in the Second Age, they would have to exist in the Second Age, okay? And it's also going to go into details about that evidence later on. He also included that he sees it as Hobbits before the Third Age didn't do anything impressive, so we felt we had license there to tell a good Harfoot story. So in other words, they're using the artistic integrity argument, the artistic way that where they are able to go ahead and use their artistic values to add something to an original story. Okay, in artistic liberty, that's what it's called. They're using artistic liberty to add the Hobbits into the Second Age story. So he also McVeigh added that it's really important for us from minute one that what makes Tolkien's tone unique and special is the blend of all the cultures and what each of them bring to Middle Earth and what each of them represent, yada, yada, yada. So in other words, they basically showing that they assume that they know what Tolkien mean, but at the same time, they're using their artistic liberty to go ahead and add Hobbits in the story. Why? Because Hobbits help the company make money. They assume that since the audience who are familiar with Tolkien and Lord of the Rings are going to love the Hobbits, and it's like they're going to add them into something that they were not a part of. So they assume that we should be fine with it and that they know what they're talking about and we don't. But there's people out there who actually read not only the Silmarillion, but all the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings books, and also Tolkien's letters. And they kept telling people, read the book, read the book, read the book, read the book. When people actually read the book, and they're using the book to disprove their claims about everything that's going on in the Second and Third Age. Okay, but I digress. Moving along. So this is a lengthy article, and I'm just going to go over the gist of the things that we've covered before, as well as things we already know. Where Payne also detailed about Harfoots' ancestors, the Hobbits, rather than a breeder of Hobbit. Okay. That's one dumb move right there. He stated that, Hobbits, the Harfoots are just the ancestor of Hobbits. There's 3 different breeds of Hobbits. Harfoots is one of them. The other one, and the others we're going to get into details later. And he said, well, Tolkien gave us all these major clues about cultures in Second Age. Concerning hobbits, he talks about the ancestors of hobbits, where there's Stewards, Fallenheids, and Harfoots. And he gives us just a couple of tantalizing paragraphs about Harfoots, but then you take those clues in there and you say, cool, what kind of society would he talks about their wandering days? So my thing is, Harfoots are not the ancestors of hobbits. They're a breed of hobbits. All right. So, talking about the Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, where Tolkien states on page 3, before the crossing of the mountains, the hobbits had already become divided into 3 somewhat different breeds: Harfoots, Stewards, and Fallenheids. The Harfoots were borrower of skin, small and shorter, and they were beardless and bootless. Their hands and feet were neat and nimble, and they preferred highlands and hillsides. I'm going to read this last sentence again. It says here, the Harfoots were browner of skin, smaller and shorter, and they were beardless and bootless, and their hands and feet were neat and nimble. Neat and nimble. Their hands and feet were neat and nimble, and they preferred highlands and hillsides. Ooh. He later notes the Harfoots had much to do with dwarves in ancient times and long lived in the foothills of the mountains, and they moved westward early and roamed over Eriador as far as Weathertop, while the others were still in Wilderland. They were the most normal and representative variety of hobbit, and as far the most numerous. They were the most inclined to settle in one place and longest preserved their ancestral habit of living in tunnels and holes. Now, clearly, we see that Harfoots are opposite of what Payne claimed. Okay, what J.D. Payne had claimed. So, he only had to read the 3rd page of the Fellowship of Rings to figure it out. Okay. So then, back to McKay's claim, where he can imagine a version of Second Age that didn't have hobbits. But Tolkien says in the first Appendix B reveals that hobbits do not arrive in the histories until the Third Age, when the tribe of Harfoots entered Eriador in 1050. It states that Perinath are first mentioned in the records with the coming of Harfoots to Eriador. And this is another example that Harfoots are indeed hobbits. Okay? They're not the ancestors of hobbits, just like one would say that the Tyrannosaurus Rex is the ancestor of the chicken. The Harfoots are hobbits. They're a breed of hobbits, not the ancestor of hobbits. They don't know what they're talking about, as usual. But it's not to say that the beginners were before the Third Age, but Tolkien actually wrote in the prologue of the Fellowship of the Ring, where he says, the beginning of hobbits lies far back in the elder days that are now lost and forgotten. Only the elves still preserve any records of that vanished time, and their traditions are concerned almost entirely with their own history, and in which men seldom appear and hobbits are not mentioned at all. Okay, so the fact that he mentioned the wandering days and stuff, Tolkien didn't even add any detail about records. Their own records began only after the settlement of the Shire, and their most ancient legends hardly look further back than their wandering days. And it's clear, nonetheless, from these legends and from the evidence of their words and customs, that, like many other folk hobbits had in the distant past, moved westward. And Tolkien also detailed that their earliest tales seem to glimpse a time when they dwelt in the upper vales of Anduin, between the eaves of Greenwood the Great and the Misty Mountains. While they later undertook the hard and perilous crossing of the mountains into Eriador is no longer certain. Their own accounts speak of the multiplying of men in the land, and the shadow that fell on the forest, so that it became darkened, and its new name was Mirkwood. Okay, so Mirkwood being that shadow that fell up there, and I believe this is also where the spiders had starting to come up. Okay, So it's clear that the beginning of Hobbits goes back to the Elder Days, or as they call it, the First Age. Okay, and Tolkien also made it clear that they didn't play any significant role in the histories up until the Third Age. All right. Number of his letters also made it even clearer, where in letter 131 to Milton Waldman, he wrote, "In the Middle Age, the hobbits appear. Their origin is unknown even to themselves, as they escaped the notice of the great or civilized peoples with records and kept none themselves, save vague oral traditions, until they had migrated from the borders of Mirkwood, fleeing from the shadow, and wandered westward, coming into contact with the last remnants of the kingdom of Arnor. The age Tolkien is referring to is the Third Age, which is noted earlier in the letter." So it's like they kept telling us to go ahead and read the book, but they haven't even taken heed of what Tolkien wrote himself. Moving along, talking about letters 19, 220, and 223. Now, when letter 19 stated that how his history of Middle Earth did not include hobbits, where he wrote, "I shall certainly now, if I'm allowed to publish the parts of the great history that was written first and rejected, but to me, the surprising success of The Lord of the Rings will probably cause that rejection to be reconsidered, although I do not think it would have the appeal of the no hobbits full of mythology and elvishness and all that high style, as Chaucer might say, which has been so little to the taste of many reviewers." And then in letter 223, he said that I'm now under contract, engaged among allies other less congenial tasks in putting into order for publication the mythology and stories of the First and Second Ages written long ago, but judge hardly unpublishable until, so it seems, the surprising success of The Lord of the Rings, which comes at the end, has provided a probable demand for the beginnings. But there are, I fear, no hobbits in the Silmarillion or history of the three jewels. The three jewels being the Silmarils, made by Fëanor. Okay? Little fun or earthiness, but mostly grief and disaster, he asserted. Those critics who scoffed at the Lord because all the good boys came home safe and everyone was happy ever after, quite untrue, ought to be satisfied. They would not be, of course, even if they deigned to notice the book. So in other words, he's basically stating that this is not the first time people claim that hobbits existed or should have existed in the Silmarillion. He wrote it himself. They did not. And also, when they did exist, they didn't play much of an integral role. And there's also no records of the hobbits. All right. But now we have Payne and McKay going ahead and adding what they consider to be actual Tolkien stuff when it's not. It's actual fan fiction. They decided to go ahead and use artistic liberties to include the hobbits in the Second Age of Rings of Power. Okay. So it goes on to say how McKay told Vanity Fair that the show was not allowed to egregiously contradict Tolkien's works when it actually does. And it's like, you can say it's not intended or you didn't have any intention to do it. Either way, you didn't read the works for yourself. You didn't do the research. You didn't do your own research. No, you just went on ahead and decided to go ahead, get something out there to put out there just to go ahead and make money. Period. This is all what it comes down to, making money off of a published work that is famous, that a lot of people already know about. And then you could decide to go ahead and add your own little twist into it. McKay was quoted saying, "There's a version of everything we need for the Second Age in the books we have the rights to." So basically they have the rights to things of a certain age, but not everything. Not things from the Third Age, not things from the First Age. All right. They only have a small bit to it, rights to a small bit of what Tolkien wrote. Okay. But it's like at the same time, it's like, we've heard about them sending a script over to I had his name on my tongue. He's the one who I don't forget his name like that. Anyway, they sent the script over to the director and producer of the Lord of the Rings trilogies and the Hobbit movies, and Peter Jackson. That's what it was, Peter Jackson. And it's like he never received a copy of the script. I mean, he's still gonna watch the show and everything, but as far as he's concerned, as far as I'm concerned, he never received a copy of the script. And it's like they also ghosted him, you know. And he won't. McKay will continue with, as long as we're painting within those lines and not egregiously contradict to something we don't have the rights to. There's a lot of leeway and room to dramatize and tell some of the best stories that Tolkien ever came up with. So basically, they're saying that they're going to go ahead and tell the stories that they didn't have. They're going to they'll tell the stories that Tolkien had actually came up with without going outside of the bounds of the things that they had rights over. So in other words, they're going ahead and add their own little twist to it, which people don't have any interest in. I'm guaranteeing you all this is going to have low ratings, and they're going to try to figure out a way to say that it has higher ratings and it's so popular, everybody loves it. You should watch it too. As for what they have rights to, Payne relay, we have the rights solely to the Fellowship of the Ring, the Two Towers, and Return of the King, the appendices, and the Hobbit, and that's it, not the Silmarillion. So why would you consider and try to include things that's from the Silmarillion and you don't have rights to them? They don't have, not only do they not have the rights to the Silmarillion, they also don't have the rights to Unfinished Tales, History of Middle Earth, or any of the other books. So that clearly shows that not only do they refuse to listen to what Tolkien said about the Hobbits, but they're just going based on what they have the rights to. And that in itself shows that that's something that the fans don't want. Okay? But let me know your thoughts about this whole thing. What do you think? You know, like if matter of fact, if they don't have the rights to the other major stuff, and we already know the stories of Fellowship of the Ring, Two Towers, Return of the King, and the Hobbits, then why would you even create the show in the first place? Let me know your thoughts about that. Should this have even happened in the first place, or should we let them do their own thing, keep it on open mind, and then just watch the show and try to enjoy it at least? What do you make of this? And also, let me know in the comments below anywhere that I might have went wrong or anything, and comment your thoughts about it. And also, if you haven't done so, please subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the content I put out there, and click the bell notification so that way you'll be notified of future uploads. And also, if you enjoy the things that I shared in this video, go ahead and smash that like button, all right? And share this video everywhere on social media. Until then, peace.